first of all, Josh, nice to catch up with you. A hard time at the moment, working non-stop, I imagine, 24/7, but I want to turn the clock back a little bit because you've just really completed your first full season as the head of the recruitment at Crewe. Just sum it all up, and how do you think it's gone?
Yeah, it's been a positive 12 months, I think. It's obviously pretty challenging. I think some challenges I expected, some challenges are new, but I guess that's the nature of challenges. But overall, I think we've put good building blocks in place to make sure that, when we're signing players in future, there's more diligence done on them than has possibly happened previously. The infrastructure of the department, the processes. I think in that regard, even if I think obviously have made some positive signings, but even if you don't get an immediate impact from that, that's only going to be good for the club.
You've worked at previous football clubs, and you've got to where you are now as a head of recruitment at a football league side. What would you say the biggest thing that you've learned throughout the last 12 months?
I think an interesting thing, especially at this club, is about culture change. I think obviously the club's had a lot of success doing things a certain way for a long time, and sometimes it can be slow to get buy-in. That's not to say there's not a willingness, and I think that's the most important thing because, when I speak to Alex and Kenny, when you sit down with people that have been at the club for ages and explain, well, you're trying to do things this way, you're trying to do things differently, maybe a bit more modern than maybe things have been done in the past. They want to listen to it. They want to learn about it, and I think when you can get buy-in from certain people that have been in the club for a long time, it does make the culture change easier for other people who are less naturally open to it. But I think that's probably the thing I've learned the most. Just probably ways about going about ways of changing the culture slightly. Which I think we've made good progress, but as I say, it's never easy in any club.
Would you say then, you got your feet under the table, you found out how the club worked and the way it went about things, that you're now in a position where you're implementing your style of the way that you want it to be?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's always an evolving process. I don't think that everything's exactly, it's definitely not all my way, but I think hopefully when you get little wins and little successes in whether it's just making an offer for a player or making a successful signing, when you get those wins, it makes it easier to get buy-in the next time you're trying to implement something that, you've built up the trust, and the trust is always evolving. I think I do have good trust from Belly and from Alex and from Kenny. But obviously, you can always have more, and that is something that I'm keen to keep earning, hopefully.
Away from the four walls at Rees or at the Morflake Stadium, there's no doubt about it in your role and in any part of managerial roles in football. Good contacts, good relationships are crucial and vital, aren't they? Are you happy with how you've been able to build them up?
Yeah, I think obviously someone might look at me and think, well, Glyn, for example, has got a lot more contacts than me. But because it's a network, I know that if Glyn's address book's still my address book as well. I'm humble enough to know that I can, when to ask someone for advice. Glyn's experience is still with me because I will ask him and he's always willing to help. So I think that sort of lack of contacts or lack of experience is only an issue if you don't want to use more experience, which I do.
People might think that it's not an everyday job yours, but you just work through the summer months, but that's not the case, is it? But is this the most busiest time? I know you've got another transfer window that opens up, in January, but is this the real crucial time? Yeah,
for sure. This is the most stressful time of my life. But I enjoy the stress. Otherwise, you're in the wrong job. You enjoy the challenge. in the off season, all you can do is do as much homework, as much diligence as you can to make sure that this time is not chaotic, is structured, and you're making the right decisions, that you're making informed decisions. You've got your short lists and whatever. That obviously gets all done in the off season. So it's not the case that you're not doing anything, but yeah, this is obviously where it all comes to a head.
You mentioned Glyn Chamberlain, who's got a great association with this football club, and you got to know him well when he was working for you as well. But did him departing for a big club like Derby County change your role, and have you been able to add a couple of people to your department?
Yeah, it was a blow to us when Glyn left, because I have only positive things to say about him. In terms of what we've added, I think we've added a recruitment analyst, Joe, who's been excellent. Very different profile to Glyn. He's much younger and more savvy on a computer and less old piles of notebooks at home like Glyn. But he's been a great addition. Then when Glyn left as well, he introduced me to 2 ex-Premier League scouts that I know that I can call on whenever I need them, and they're very, very helpful. But then in terms of just the natural progression of the department, we've added video scouts, we've added live scouts, we've got someone in Scotland, for example. We've got a data scientist, which he's only part-time, but it's just trying to get the right people in the right places to help us make the process as good as it can be.
You've talked there about data. It's all changed, hasn't it, from many, many years ago when the scouts used to be out 7 days a week looking at the players out on cold wintry nights. It's now a lot of computer-based work. How important is that?
Yeah, it's very important, but I think it's also important for me to stress that I don't think that those scouts with experience have value, because they definitely do. They complement it. The data's all about complementing those scouts, because they could, in probably previous years, go and watch a game that there are no relevant players for them to be there realistically, whereas we can use the data now to guide them of where they're going. They can come back with feedback on things that the data's probably not as strong at looking at. So say, for example, we're looking for an aggressive centre-back. It's hard for the data to rate aggression. So they can give us feedback on things like that. And then we can use their feedback and the data together to make a more informed decision.
Talk us through it then, how it all works for you, the head of the recruitment, with the management team, when you're trying to improve your squad this summer for the kick-off in August. How does it get together?
So we'll have a meeting with Belly and coaches, and he'll say, this is what I think we're going to need in terms of the profiles of players, and we'll ask questions about maybe more of the specific attributes that he'd be looking for. He'll ask what we think the squad needs, but obviously that's ultimately his domain, what he wants to bring in. Then that's almost the start of the process in a lot of ways, because that's where we prioritise who we want to watch, who we want to analyse, who we want to get character references on. We'll put all that together, put it in a nice digestible format, and come back with a short list of players that some Belly will know, some he won't know, just players that we want to introduce that we think are worth considering as signings. And then, through just discussions, we sort of prioritise those.
A club like the size of Crewe, and they're not on their own, it's a hard life, isn't it, for getting that budget as big as they can, and for you to use as well. Is that difficult, or is that, again, another challenge that you thrive on?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be Crewe without talking about the budget, but I think it's a challenge, definitely, but it's enjoyable in a way. It's like it makes it, you've got to be more savvy. You couldn't just sign a League Two, a team of established League Two players in every position, because we'd get priced out of that team. You need to take more risks, but make sure they're calculated risks when you're signing the players. And I mean, as long as you know what the constraints are, you can still do all your homework and make the best decision out of the players that are available to you.
We could go on for hours and hours with this interview, because there's that many things that we could question you and you can give the answers to. But I suppose for the supporters who are listening to it, and everybody else connected to the football club who are having a watch of what we're talking about, we are in the middle of the recruitment period, and you know what fans want to know. We know a couple of weeks ago there was, you showed interest in a player. Have you got any positives of where you were going at the moment?
Yeah, there are positives. I know when you look on Twitter, sometimes the fans might think, all clubs are signing except for us, but I don't think that's true. That it's been quite a slow start to the League Two transfer window, but I think we're in quite a good position. Like we have made offers for players. It is just obviously the case that things change a lot in football, and you need to make sure that the deals are the best for, as well as suiting them, they are the best thing for the club. So yeah, I think hopefully we'll have some positive feedback at some point. Yeah,
just while those offers are on the table, that doesn't mean to say that you're not looking elsewhere and you're ready to move if you think it's right for the club to get negotiations started with other possible targets.
Yeah, exactly. It is important to be agile like that, because things do change very quickly in football, and you got to be able to capitalise on that sometimes.
So, what are you hoping for come August when it kicks off? Because it's down to them then, isn't it? The management, and everybody else connected to that. You hopefully have done your job.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that the squad looks healthier. And we have players, competition for places, strong new attributes in positions where maybe there was lacking last season, and just looking forward to hopefully seeing it all click together.